Hey y'all, in today's video I've put together 5 recipes all using ground beef, and every single one of these recipes was easy, quick to throw together, and our family loved every single one, and I think you will too. Let's get into these recipes. First up, we have Sloppy Joe mac and cheese. This was so easy to throw together and my whole family loved it. We are going to start by browning up 1 pound of ground beef, and also I have a boiling pot of water back here in the back. I'm gonna boil 16 ounces of elbow noodles. While the ground beef is cooking, I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. Salt's getting a little bit low here. I need to fill it up. Next, we're gonna add in 2 fresh garlic cloves, minced, and 1 chopped onion. And we're just gonna let this continue to cook for about 2 minutes until these onions soften up. Next, I'm adding in 2 cups of crushed tomatoes. All I could find was this 28-ounce can, so I'm not gonna quite add the whole thing. The recipe also calls for 2 teaspoons of chili powder. I'm gonna go not quite 2. You can always add more in later. Also, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and then 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. I'm gonna stir this all together, and this is gonna simmer for about 10 minutes. Next, we're just gonna pour our pasta into our sauce. I might not pour quite all of that, because I want mine to be really saucy. We're also gonna add 1 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. And I just had a thought as I'm sitting here stirring this up. This would also be really good, I think, over baked potatoes. I mean, how good does a Sloppy Joe mac and cheese baked potato sound? I think that would be something different. And also really easy. You can just throw your potatoes in the oven, cook all this up, and there you go. I'm gonna pop my lid on just for a couple minutes, and then we're almost done. So next, I'm going to add another cup of mozzarella cheese to the top, and also a little chopped parsley. Pop the lid on, let that cheese on top get nice and melty, and we'll be ready to eat. I just served this with some fresh steamed broccoli, and like I said, everybody in my family loved it. It reminded me kind of Spanish rice, but in macaroni form. Like I said, so good, definitely real easy, staying on the list for sure. The first recipe that I tried this week was a beef and bean burrito from the Pioneer Woman. I have the recipe linked down below if you guys want to try it. You just brown up 2 pounds of ground beef along with some onion, some seasoning, and then you add enchilada sauce. I just kind of eyeballed it. Again, the exact measurements will be in her recipe. And then over on the side, I heated up 2 cans of refried beans. I added some freshly shredded sharp cheddar cheese to that, and just let that all melt and come together. Once that did, I got my burrito sized tortillas out. I heated those in the microwave for just a few seconds, and then you'll see me add the bean and cheese mixture and the ground beef, and then I just roll those up. I top those with a little bit more enchilada sauce, some more shredded cheese, and a little bit of cilantro. Pop those back in the microwave for about a minute just to let that cheese get nice and melty. Oh my goodness, these were so good. My husband loved these, my kids loved these, and it made a ton. So this is a perfect opportunity to use up leftovers, cook once, and eat twice. So I have about 2 pounds of ground beef here that I'm just going to brown up. Again, I'm just adding some dried onion. I'm adding some of this buttery steakhouse seasoning and then this other seasoning by Fire and Smoke. It had some garlic in there, some dill, what else? Paprika, onion, and I just thought that sounded really good for a cheeseburger. So use any seasonings you like, or you could even use an onion soup packet in here. I did add salt and pepper as well, and I just got that mixture all browned up. Alright, so I have drained our ground beef, and now I'm just going to add a few tablespoons of mayonnaise. And basically this is just kind of a binder to hold together everything on our slider buns. But you could also add ketchup or mustard, but I just think my family, especially my kids, will like it better with kind of just the mayonnaise. And then we're just going to stir everything together. We're just gonna let that ground beef sit for a few minutes. And so meanwhile, over here in a small saucepan, I have half a stick of butter that is melting. We're gonna add 3 or 4 dashes of Worcestershire sauce. I found my garlic salt, y'all. I'm just gonna add a little of that. Also gonna add some onion powder. I'm just gonna whisk all that together. All right, next we're gonna bring over our Hawaiian Rolls. I already sliced these in half. So I'm just gonna get the bottoms transferred over here to a baking sheet. Next, I'm just gonna bring over that ground beef and start piling it on. And of course you could serve these with all the regular cheeseburger fixings like lettuce and tomato and all that. You could kind of open them back up and let everyone, you know, top theirs however they want. But I think they're good just like this. All right, you kind of want to even it out. Make sure you get it to the edges so each little roll has some. Next, on top of our ground beef, I'm just going in with some sharp cheddar cheese. And I accidentally bought the super thin kind. So I'm just going to kind of layer it up a little bit. Next, I'm going to bring over that butter mixture and just put a small layer on top of the cheese. All right, now we're ready for the tops of our buns. Then we're gonna do a little bit more butter on the tops. Kind of take some of the extra and go around the sides a little bit. And lastly, we're just gonna sprinkle the tops with a few sesame seeds. Of course, this is optional. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. All right, I'm gonna get these covered tightly with some foil, and these are gonna go into the oven at 350 for about 20 minutes. All we're really doing is toasting up the buns and melting that cheese inside. These turned out so delicious. They were super cheesy, and that cheese, along with the little hint of sweetness from those Hawaiian rolls, made these little cheeseburgers so amazing. Everybody liked them. Even my daughter, who doesn't even love cheeseburgers, loved these. So I think this is also a great option if you don't want to grill a bunch of cheeseburgers. These are super easy to throw together ahead of time, and you have a delicious little spread. So here we go. So we're just starting by browning 2 pounds of ground beef. I'm gonna add 2 green bell peppers that I have already chopped and 1 medium onion chopped. And I'm just gonna let those cook down with this ground beef. So our ground beef is no longer pink and our veggies are a little soft. So while this is finishing browning up, I think we have just a couple more minutes here. My ground beef is done and there's a good bit of grease in here, so I'm gonna go drain this in some paper towels and I'll be right back. I've turned off my heat and now I'm just gonna add about 4 cloves of minced garlic. 1½ teaspoons of Italian seasoning. We're gonna add about 3 tablespoons of this tomato paste. We're not gonna use this whole can, but as I'm making this is reminding me of Spanish rice. And if y'all know, Darren loves that. That's one of his favorite dishes. So I think he's gonna love this recipe. Next, I'm adding 1 can of mild rotel. So next, the recipe calls for 3 cups of beef broth, but I actually have a beef broth that is opened in my fridge and a chicken broth. So I'm gonna use a mixture of both just to equal 3 cups. I think it'll still be fine, and I'll get to use these up. And lastly, to the pan, I'm adding 1½ cups of uncooked white rice. Now I'm just gonna stir everything together, and this is gonna go into a baking dish. And I love recipes like this because you don't even have to cook the rice. It just cooks along with everything while the whole casserole is baking. Makes it super easy. You can really get this in the oven within 10 or 15 minutes. Does not get any easier than that. I have my 9x13 that I just sprayed. Now I'm gonna transfer everything into my baking dish. Covered really tightly with some aluminum foil, and this is gonna go into the oven at 350. It does have to bake for an hour, so just keep that in mind. All right, it's been cooking a little over halfway, and the directions say to give it a stir. So that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna recover it, and it's going back in the oven. All right, so everything is cooked through. That rice is tender. Now we're just gonna top with about 2 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. And this is going back into the oven just for about 5 minutes to get that cheese nice and melted. Alright, so I am going to be making our 1-pot chili mac in my Dutch oven tonight. I have my ground beef over here, but we're only going to use half of this. You don't need a whole pound for this recipe. I'm sure you could use a whole pound if you wanted to bulk it up a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and half this and save the other half for later. Alright, so I got my Dutch oven at about medium-high heat. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil. Alright, to our olive oil, we're going to add 1 diced onion. We're also gonna add 2 minced garlic cloves. I'm just gonna stir this and cook this for about 2 or 3 minutes to let it start to brown up, but we don't want that garlic to burn. And as always, I will have these recipes typed out in the description box below. So that's where you'll be able to find all the exact measurements and everything, so you don't have to take notes while I actually cook. I'm gonna add just a little bit more olive oil. Ugh, I love that smell. Is there anything better? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add our 8 ounces of ground beef. Get that mixed in. So our ground beef is almost all browned up. When it is done in just a second or two, I'm gonna go ahead and drain the fat. There's not much, but I'm gonna go ahead and drain it on some paper towels, and then I'll get it back in the pot and we'll add the rest of our ingredients. Next, we're gonna add 4 cups of chicken broth. We're gonna add in 1 can of petite diced tomatoes. We're also gonna add 1 can of white kidney beans. And I poured off the liquid on top, but I didn't drain or rinse them. And then the same thing with 1 can of pinto beans. We're also gonna add 2 teaspoons of chili powder, and then 1½ teaspoons of ground cumin. Also gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper. All right, I'm gonna turn this back up to about medium heat again. And go ahead and give everything a stir. And lastly, we're gonna add 2 cups of dry macaroni noodles. And the macaroni noodles are just gonna cook in this liquid, and everything is gonna be delicious I'm gonna pop the lid on here and let this simmer for about 10 or 15 minutes, but I'm gonna keep an eye on it to see if I need to add any more liquid, and if I do, I'll just add a little bit more chicken broth. You just wanna make sure the elbow noodles have enough liquid to cook in, because they're gonna soak up a lot of that. All right, so my noodles are cooked. So now I'm just gonna add some cheddar cheese. I like to add some in with our noodles as well, probably about a cup. And then I'll add a little bit on top as well. And lastly, we're gonna add just a little bit of parsley for some color on top. I'm gonna place the lid on just for a couple minutes and we're ready to eat. Oh my gosh, y'all, I love doing these best of videos because as I'm editing this, it reminded me how good this was, and I cannot wait to make this again, especially when our weather finally starts to get cool. But anyways, if you loved any recipe in today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also watch one of these videos here on the screen next. You will love those as well. I hope you're all doing amazing, and I'll see y'all real soon in my next video. Bye, y'all.